Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to You've Championed Yourself. Who are you? I'm Chris Ferguson, your host. It has always been a dream of mine to showcase ordinary people doing extraordinary things in life for themselves and others. Those who have taken their dreams, their ideas, and turned it into their reality. As they reach beyond their personal struggle, their pains, and their traumas, where so many people give up, who lose hope. There are the few that can walk through their obstacles, their challenges. They don't know where it's going to take them. They just trust themselves enough not to give up, do the follow through in their personal life, their career, and in relationships. And this is what I call a champion in life. Today, I have an amazing young lady with me. Her name is Sandra Bellamy. She is asexual and she's an expert in this field. And I'm excited and honored to have her here. I have some questions of my own for understandings. So let's welcome Sandra to the podcast.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Awesome. I'm so glad you're here. I know that there's a lot of topics nowadays people don't want to talk about.
Mhm.
They don't want to know the truth or the back part of it. So I always ask my guests, um, let's talk about the backstory. At that one time when you realized that this wasn't for you and you were like, no, this isn't me. This is who I am. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, so you want to know when I found out and how I discovered I'm asexual, yeah?
Well, yes, sure. That would be a great point.
Yeah.
A great starting point.
Well, it was kind of weird because I had some counselling. The kind of extended stories, I had some counselling, and the counselling stopped because the woman said that I knew all the answers myself to my own questions, so I didn't need counselling anymore, which is great. So that ended, and then all of a sudden, it was about 8 months well, at least 8 months later, I got a call out of the blue saying that, hi, we've got a counsellor now that can see you. And I thought this was really strange because I never went on a waiting list to see a counsellor. And I thought my counselling sessions had ended. And so I believe everything happens for a reason. So I'm very intuitive. I'm led by my intuition. So I said, okay, I spoke to this person on the phone. They seemed nice on the phone. So I agreed to see them. And the only thing I thought it might be to do with is the fact that, I was looking basically for a relationship, but I didn't want sex. And so that's what basically I went there to talk to her about, because I thought, well, this opportunity's come up, so I will talk to her about that. And so I said to her that, that I was looking for a relationship, but I was about to give up because I wanted to have a relationship where there was kissing and romance involved, but not sex. Because sex, so if I was dating heterosexual guys, for example, which I still was doing, sometimes, then I said the expectation of sex at the end of the night made me feel like I was going to wet myself because I was too much intensity with sexual energy, and I knew I didn't want sex. So basically, that was what I was saying to her, that I wanted the kissing and romance, but without the sex. And that I was really worried about it because I was worried that there was no one else basically like me in the world, planet, and universe. And that I was the only one like that, and that I was going to have to give up on the idea of dating relationships and finding someone because of it. And then it was really, really bad. This was an NHS, so National Health Service trained counsellor in the United Kingdom. So she's supposed to be very, very professional. And she said something really bad to me. And she said that I would have to have sex in order to keep a good guy. And I was absolutely horrified, because to me, that's like giving someone a license to rape me, because obviously if I don't want sex and she's saying I have to have it in order to keep a guy, and for him to be a good guy I need to have sex with him, I was really shocked, because obviously if a guy's wanting me to stay with him based on something that I personally don't like and want for me, that isn't a good guy. And so I was really distraught, and it's the worst thing she could have said, because I went to her to get help and it was the opposite. And it was what I didn't want to hear, and it was dreadful. So I went home, Googled I love kissing but not sex, and then I discovered asexuality and asexuality.org, which is a major forum for asexuals. And I was looking through the forum threads there, and I saw that there was loads of other people like me who wanted a relationship without sex. And I'm like, oh, it's such a relief.
I do have a question. How old were you when you got this counseling?
Oh God, I don't like talking about my birth certificate age. So I
Okay,
put,
well, I'm just saying, were you a teenager or were
no,
you an adult?
I was so I have a 21st mindset, and I reprogrammed my mind years ago to be like 21 years old using NLP, neuro linguistic programming. So I
Absolutely know
usually
what
don't
it is.
talk about my age, but if you want to know, it was in my early 30s when I found out.
Okay, I was
I
curious.
think actually I can't. It was 2014. It's better to say
Okay,
that, because I just blocked my birth certificate age out. So I'm trying to think now. Yeah, because I wrote my Asexual Perspectives book in 2017. So
okay. Because
yeah,
the reason why is I've had some experience with juveniles, and I had one girl who was asexual, or she
yeah.
told me she was asexual,
Oh yeah.
but she was 17. So I was just trying to compare the time frames.
Oh yeah. So
So
I
it
mean,
wasn't I'm not trying to find out your age.
no,
I was
it's because
just
I've
trying to
really blocked it.
understand.
Because I think I'm 21. I've programmed my mind. It's very difficult to remember my actual birth certificate age and in correspondence. It was in my 30s. I know that for definite. But there are people that find, like in my Asexual Perspectives book I've got here, for example, there's someone who
Okay, pull it
there's
up. There you
someone
go. There you go. You
who's like,
wrote this is your book, right?
yeah, Asexual Perspectives, 47
Mhm.
Asexual Stories. This is my own book. I interviewed 47 asexuals for it. Well, it's me and 46 asexuals, I should say.
Okay.
And it's all the questions that people ask when they first come to know about asexuality, about love, life, and sex, told from different asexual perspectives.
Perspectives, right.
And so yeah, there's someone in it 13 years old, I believe, and I think 11. So I get teenagers who literally come, even on my chat bubble in my website, saying I'm a teenager and I'm asexual, you know. Some of them are questioning, some of them know already they're asexual. I had one the other day who said, you know, like, can I still get a relationship and have love without, you know, and just love in a relationship if I'm asexual? I'm like, yes, you can, because I have friends who are in relationships with other asexuals, for example, without sex.
So let's talk about what exactly is an asexual individual. What
So
is the definition so that all my listeners understand this? Because
yeah,
there's so many. When I was Googling it, it was like, what? There's so many different perceptions of it.
yeah. So there's a general definition, and there's a more wider one. So I'll try and say it as easily as I can for your listeners. So basically, asexuality is based on a lack of sexual attraction.
Okay.
The full definition is it's based on lack of sexual attraction and or little to no interest in sexual activities.
Okay.
So it's and or. So someone who's asexual could still lack sexual attraction but participate in sex. And you've got other asexuals that hate sex and are sex repulsed and don't want anything to do with sex.
Okay.
But,
That I'm now understanding this, because it was like there was a lot of
but
misperceptions.
but asexuality, as well as being a sexual orientation, is a spectrum as well. So it's got two. It's kind of gets very confusing because, you know, so someone asexual can be on something called the asexual spectrum. To put it very, very simplistic terms, you've got pure asexuals that don't experience any sexual attraction whatsoever, going all the way through to the grey asexuals that do experience sexual attraction, but only in limited, rare, or specific circumstances, or who do experience it, but not enough to want to act on it. And lots of subcategories in between. So, and you get one asexuals that are complete absence of romantic attraction, and those that have romantic attraction are different ends of the romantic spectrum within the asexual spectrum.
Okay, I'm now understanding, but there's a lot of misconceptions in the industry and
Yes.
understanding of it. And for someone like me, if I hadn't had exposure, and someone who was younger a couple years ago started telling me about this, and I was like, I had never heard about it. And it was like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it and see how it is. And so in that, I appreciate you defining it out for me. Thank you. How did you become your authentic self in your asexuality?
Okay, so yeah, so I found out I was asexual in 2014. I left counselling because obviously that wasn't good for me. And so yeah, so in 2015, in the beginning of that, in January 2015, I started holding asexual meetups. I have generalized anxiety disorder, which I've had predominantly for all my life. And I used to be not very good in groups. So this is one of my transformations because I actually organise group meetups for asexuals in person. We had one last weekend actually. So that's one of my transformations. But nowadays, I don't tend to have much social anxiety. It's other anxiety. So most of the time, I'm good socially. But then in October 2015 is when I started my Asexualize My Asexual Life channel. That's what it's called.
Right.
And so that's when I started helping asexuals online. And it was really difficult because prior to that, I didn't used to talk about sex at all. And I used to be very, very shy about it. And I would only talk to my former boyfriend at the time when I was with him. Like my ex-boyfriends, I talked to them about it because I had sex in the past. I'm asexuals that had sex in the past. And then, you know, and I wouldn't even talk to my best friend or a female friend or anyone else. It was just a boyfriend I had at the time. And then I knew that to help asexuals on my YouTube channel, I was going to have to start talking about very private issues because it's kind of weird. Although I'm asexual, I'm personally sex repulsed for me these days. I'm not sex repulsed for other people who like it, want it, it's consensual and enjoy it. And so I cover all the asexual spectrum on my channel, which is quite interesting because, you know, I get sex repulsed asexuals and sex positive asexuals watching my channel. So it's kind of like interesting because obviously some sex repulsed asexuals will not like some of my episodes because obviously I talk about sex. But because I'm asexual and do a show for asexuals, I talk about sex more than a lot of other people probably would in their everyday life. And so now it's kind of weird. It's like now I become like a sex expert or something, which is very interesting. So yeah, I do talk about a lot about dating and relationships on my channel with a view from asexuality point of view as well, because obviously that's very difficult when you're asexual.
So let's talk about the vulnerable part about it. How did you go from an introvert to be able to talk about one of the hardest topics on the planet to talk about with other people openly and online about sexuality?
Well,
That's a huge transition.
I'm actually an extrovert, funnily enough. So I have some introvert tendency, but I'm actually an extrovert in terms of like, you know, like socializing, you know, I like getting out. I'd be out all the time if I could. So I'm actually quite outgoing in my personality, but I get shy about certain topics. So yeah, for me, it was just like my main motto is you can't take it to the grave with you. If you take it to the grave with you, it will help no one. So that's how I managed to think in my head. I'm like, okay, Sandra, if you take all this information about your past sexual relationships, everything you've been through, and you don't speak about it publicly, it's going to help no one. You're just going to die, and you could have helped someone. And I've always wanted to be in the media actually since I was 15 years old, and know I'm born for a very special life purpose. And I love writing books. So books is my life purpose, followed very closely by helping asexuals. And I believe I was given the job, if you like, given the mission from God, the world, planet, and universe to get asexuality recognized as a sexual orientation in its own right throughout the globe, so that no asexual has to live in fear of ridicule ever again. And because I'm quite a bold person and I've got a lot of guts and I am a strong person, then yeah, I just believe I'm the one to do that because I've got a past with sexuals. I was in heterosexual relationships even from the age of 6 years old was my first heterosexual relationship. And so I believe I'm the person to bring sexuals and asexuals together to understand each other more, because asexuality is quite well known in the LGBT plus QIA community because
Okay.
yeah.
Define the LBQ plus.
So LGBT, so lesbian, gays, bisexuals, transgender. Then you've got intersex, queer, and you've got A. So A can stand for asexual, but there's debate on that where it stands for asexuals, allies, agender, aromantic. So yeah, but most people recognize that as standing for asexuality.
Okay.
So in the LGBT plus community, it's quite well known more now, but we're even not welcome sometimes in that community because their sexual orientation is based on sexual attraction still. Ours isn't, ours is based on the lack of sexual attraction. So, but my personal mission has just been given me, I know this because I'm very intuitive, but I need to get it recognized individually, because obviously if we are with LGBTQIA plus, that's great because we can kind of like, I don't like the word capitalize, but I mean capitalize in a nice way. We can actually, make use of that, as it were. But heterosexual people, for example, which is still the majority sexual orientation, they're not really going to understand the difference. They're just going to be like, oh, so you're lesbian. I get accused, if you like, of being a lesbian. I've got lesbian gay friends, but I'm not a lesbian. I'm only attracted to guys in about 8 different ways, but not sexually. And so, I personally think it's very important, especially to help prevent rapes as much as possible, that heterosexuals really understand there are genuine people that don't want, need, or aren't interested in sex, which, the asexuals fall into that category.
Couldn't that go beyond the heterosexuals? I'm getting, do you have earbuds? Because I'm getting feedback.
Do I have earbuds, did you say?
Yes. Because all of a sudden I'm hearing me talk.
Yeah, I'm hearing you, but I wasn't before. Do you want me to get, I've got some back there. Do you want me to get them?
Can you reach them without having to get up?
No.
Okay, then we'll just live with this.
Yeah.
But the reason why I'm asking, as far as the rape, isn't there, even in the LGBTQ plus, there are rapes, and it's
I'm not.
So it's not just hetero. I'm just trying to get clear on this. It's not just heterosexuals. It's just getting it known publicly.
Yeah, it's getting it known all over the globe, including, with every sexuality needs to know about asexuality. But what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of other activists and other people actively in LGBT plus communities that are spreading the word of asexuality. It's more well known because it's meant to be part of that community. Whereas for me personally, it's, I believe while I'm on planet Earth, while I'm alive, that I need to spread it more amongst sexuals. They're known as allosexuals to asexuals, but I think for your audience and for the people listening, sexuals is what I just term sexuals, with sexuals as opposed to asexuals. So all the people that experience sexual attraction and, want, need, like sex, get the urge for it, but the opposite to asexuals in general, they all need to know about it. But there's a lot of people already doing a lot of groundwork in the LGBT community. And I feel because I've had a lot of heterosexual relationships, and that's still the major population, that I'm the one to purposely get through to the majority of the population in that way. That's what I personally feel.
I'm getting to understand it. It's the way you phrased it, that it was like you were accusing heterosexuals of rape. And it's like,
oh, no way.
That's why I was trying to clarify it, because no matter, see, I don't see people by labels. I never have in my life.
I like being labeled. Some people in the asexual don't. I give myself a label, and I love labeling myself.
But let me explain, because I was punished because of society norms back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived and was bullied and was orphaned because of society's norms.
Yeah.
So I'm against labeling myself other than human being on this planet. So I'm just a human being like every other human being or every other being on this planet.
That's why
yeah. So the fact is so I'm not one for labels. And I'm not about society norms, because I've seen where people were forced into relationships back in a time, if they were married, and no matter what happened, they weren't supposed to get divorced because it wasn't socially acceptable.
Which still goes on in some countries.
And it does. And so, but here's the thing is that we're in 2022. Why can't we just get to human beings? You know what I'm saying? Or beings on the planet, and accept everybody for whom they are, not what they are, but how they behave.
Uh-huh.
And so that's why I said, I was just trying to define, because the way you had made your statement, it was like you were accusing heterosexuals of rape. And so I wanted to clarify that. That's all that I wanted to do.
Yeah,
And
no,
that for me personally, I don't label people. I see you as a human being, a
yeah,
beautiful, beautiful human being that's
yeah,
on a mission in this world. And
uh-huh,
I honor that.
uh-huh. Thank
But
you.
it doesn't, I don't require a label to accept you for who you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And so, yeah, but I love the fact that you are on a mission to help out other people
uh-huh.
who have been in unjustly, or haven't been accepted by the mainstream. And
Hmm.
is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, they haven't been accepted still in society. There's a long way to go.
So
Uh,
I think that's more your mission, is to show people that it's okay to be you. It's okay to be the way you are and what you prefer in life.
yeah, I showed them that. It's very important that we get asexuality recognized globally as a sexual orientation in its own right, because I've been in the online dating world for 7.5 years now. I only quit it officially last at the end of last year, and there are a lot of people who don't believe asexuals exist, and they will try and tell you that you just haven't had sex with them yet and stuff like this. No,
But
and so
again, that's them trying to manipulate you as a being. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
I mean, I personally like labels. I think if people want to label themselves, they should be happy if they want to label themselves. And if people don't want to label themselves, that should be up to them. Whatever
Well,
someone
the thing
comes
is so
with.
many people nowadays get labeled unjustly.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that's why I'm against labels. I'm against just I'm going to let you speak. I'm going to let you show me your behavior. I'm going to let you show me who you are as an
Yeah.
individual. And that's all I need to know. Your personal preferences, everything like that. And I'm speaking from a mom, a grandma, the perspective that I'm open-minded, but I'm not going to define you.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think you should define yourself. I mean, I understand why
I like
you're doing
defining
it.
myself. I love defining myself.
Yes.
I like,
And so, but here's the thing is, people define themselves as things that they're not, and misrepresent themselves and take advantage of other people who they see as weaker. And that's how people get hurt and bullied. And
well,
so that's what
I'm against bullying, as you know.
I,
So
I am too, wholeheartedly. So that's why I'm saying I'm against labeling, because if you and I were in a restaurant and we were sitting there talking, I don't think anybody would think you were asexual, or that I was heterosexual or homosexual or asexual myself. They wouldn't think any of that. They would think two women sitting together, talking, enjoying each other's companies. That's the vision of the world I want.
yeah, I think everyone should be accepting of every sexuality, every gender, every race, every religion. That's what I think. Everyone should accept
Mhm.
each other for who they are and live in harmony and peace together.
That
Um,
would be a perfect world.
it would be great. Yeah, it'd be great. I was just trying to. There's a lot of asexuals you see that have never had sex before, that are virgins,
Mhm.
and so I have the sexual experience that was, that was difficult for me at the time in some times. And so I can, instead of looking at that negatively, I can look at all that past experience and I can look at it as to help other people.
Right.
And because I was in the, it's very strange because although we're all living in the same world, being in the heterosexual world, if you like, and the asexual world is a bit different. So it's very difficult to describe because we all live in the same world, but it's like having two completely different world experiences in the same world, because I lived a very different life. I was in traditional heterosexual relationships. So I'm very different the way I live my life now. I live it very unconventionally. I don't watch TV, live like a teenager. Don't have a partner. If I did, I'd live separately from him. But back then I used to, like, do the traditional, have a boyfriend, live with him, come home, have a meal, watch the TV, go to bed, that type of life, which I very much personally don't like anymore. I think it's like very conditioned. And so like everyone's conditioned really from birth, well, the majority of us are, to believe that heterosexuality is the sexuality and what you're supposed to be. And obviously just because, you know, people are conditioned to believe that, or lots of people say that when they grow up, then, you know, that's not necessarily who you are. You've got to find out who you are in your own life journey. And that's why, you know, it's so important. But with all my experience, past experience of heterosexual relationships for nearly half of my life, I can use that to communicate effectively with heterosexuals, because, you know, I understand their language and how they think and they speak. And I do have grey areas. I have sexual behavior, but no sexual attraction. I have high levels of arousal, but no sexual attraction, because sexual attraction, sexual desire, and arousal are all three different things. And many people confuse them. So arousal is a feeling in your genitalia that doesn't have to be linked to anything or anyone. I can get that. I don't have to have physical contact with myself to do that. I can just have it in my head thinking about kissing, because I adore kissing. Sexual attraction is when you get the need, urge, or want for partnered sexual intercourse with a person or people. And sexual desire is when you desire the sex itself. Some of the other misconceptions as well about asexuality is people think celibacy is asexuality, which is not, because celibacy is people abstaining, usually often for choice, or for if they're abstaining for religious reasons. So it's not abstaining, it's not celibacy. Those are choices that people make. Asexuality is a genuine sexual orientation that's based on the lack of sexual attraction, and it's not something you choose to be, it's something you just are. There's evidence, I know, looking back in all my childhood now, that I was definitely asexual but didn't know it. So I was born asexual but didn't realize it, and I mistook my high arousal levels for sexual attraction for years, not realizing they're two different things. I've never looked at any of my exes, thought, oh, I really want sex with you. It never ever entered my head, but only looking back could I realize that. And that's a telltale sign, you know, that you're asexual, if you look back and you think, oh my gosh, I've never actually thought I want sex with anyone, you know?
I get that. I get that. But there's a lot of people that have, and I think there is some indoctrination and there is some programming of what is acceptable, what's not acceptable in life. But when you start talking about sex, that's that taboo subject, no matter what or who or labels or anything. You know, it's not one of those things that have been outwardly discussed.
Yeah, I discuss it so much on my channel. I'm currently working on a book, which I've been working on since June 2019, called Asexual Guide to Sex, which obviously is quite a controversial title. There's real asexual sex stories in there. Everyone that I interviewed for the book, so there's me and 17 other stories in there. They're all asexuals who've had sex. Some are still having it, some don't have it. And it's the good, the bad, and the fugly of sexual experiences, and of people losing their virginity who are asexual. And it's more like an immersive experience than a book. Like, you really go into the minds of the people's real stories and, you know, how it was for them. And it shows you asexuality rather than just telling, because a lot of people don't accept asexuality still in society. They don't think it's real. When you experience the stories of the people told in their own words, you can actually feel asexuality and what it's like, and experience how they think differently about it and how they feel differently about it. So it's more like showing someone instead of just telling them definitions of it. It's really good.
I understand that. I understand it. So but here's the thing is when you wrote your book, you brought it up before I wanted to talk about it.
This
But let's talk
asexual perspectives. I'm on another book. I'm on the second.
No. I want to talk about this book.
Yeah.
How did you get started to write this book, as far as asexual perspectives?
Oh, right.
So, yeah. So you brought it up before, but that wasn't the part I wanted to talk about. The topic. What made you create that?
Yes, I know exactly how, because it says it in the book as well. So basically, I told you earlier on that when I first discovered I was asexual, I went to a place called asexuality.org, which is one of the biggest, well, the biggest online forum for asexuals. And I was reading threads and I realized that other people didn't want sex or need it like me in a relationship. Some other people didn't. So that was really exciting. But as time progressed within that community, I even felt left out of that community, as do some other people, because you might think because we're a minority, we'd all be understanding towards each other, but that isn't necessarily the case. And so when I was on a dating site for asexuals, I was querying what type of asexual I was. I know that I'm heteromantic, so I'm romantically attracted to the opposite gender and sex, in which case for me it's guys, but I'm not sexually attracted to them. But I asked this guy who'd been holding asexual meetups because I thought he'd be experienced. And he said to me that because of the passionate kissing I like to do, even though I don't want sex, then I would be a grey asexual. So I wore that hat for a while, if you like, and I thought, okay, a grey asexual is someone who experiences sexual attraction under limited, rare, or specific circumstances, or who experiences it but not enough to want to act on it. And I thought I was the latter part, experienced it but not enough to want to act on it. But when I was going through the forum threads, I realised something very, very strange about myself. When they were talking about sex, my genitals started reacting arousally. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Because I don't want sex. But when they were talking about sex, my genitals got aroused. And that's my awakening to my own body. And the fact I was experiencing arousal, not sexual attraction. And that's when the penny dropped that for years I've been experiencing high levels of arousal, but zero sexual attraction. Okay. And so I had put my label, it's all to do with labels actually. I had put my label, because I'm proud of my label. I put my label, I have a huge label, so I probably got it longer than now, even now, than before. I think it's longer now. But my full title at the moment is I'm a heteromantic grey asexual younger cougar who doesn't like sex, just kissing. I'm also a hyper-romantic and a hyper-kisser. But at the time when I put grey A, the person in one of the forum threads told me I cannot identify like that because I don't experience any sexual attraction, which is part of the grey A definition. Technically speaking, when I first joined asexual community, a grey A was a catch-all term for someone who identified kind of in between asexual and sexual, but they didn't feel they had anywhere to go. And so I decided to keep grey A, but I was originally grey asexual and dropped it to grey A, which is still meant to be that I experience some sexual attraction, but I don't. But I wasn't comfortable calling myself just a straightforward heteromantic, because when I was on dating sites, asexual dating sites, it made it very difficult for people to understand the fact I like passionate kissing without the sex. And a lot of guys were like, oh, I'd be worried about you being too sexual in behavior with me because you like the passionate kissing. So labels is very good, I personally think, for asexual dating, so you can quickly see what someone's like at a glance, especially before you talk to them. And so, yeah, and so basically she didn't like the fact I labeled myself that she didn't, a label that she didn't personally agree with that I should be, because I didn't fit into the textbook definition of asexuality. So I made Asexual Perspectives to celebrate our diversity across the asexual spectrum and our differences within it. And every year I do Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month on my channel, which, you know, so I think that's really important, because it's up to you how you define yourself, not how other people define you. And so, you know, and so I still stick with the grey A, but I mean grey areas. And I redefined grey A in this book to mean grey areas, as in sexual behavior, but zero sexual attraction. But that hasn't been redefined officially within the asexual community. It's just something I've personally done through my book.
Okay, I'm glad that you defined that for me, because the thing was is when I'm sitting here and I'm trying to take all this in, it's like, wait a minute, this, that, this, but not that, but not this, not that, not that, not that. Okay, and this and this, and so trying to keep it all clear for me was a little hard. I'll just be honest.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's one of those things that, and again, I being the complete opposite of you of non-labeling, it's like, what the world? What happened to the human being? What happened to Sandra Bellamy? Where did that person go to?
But I get to define my own life. So if I want to define myself by a label, then I enjoy that, because it's all about me being empowered to define my own life. And if I want to change my label, I can. If I don't, then I don't. You know, because that's the choice of the individual. I think I've got an asexual and a fairly new asexual friend, and she hates labels. She's exactly like you, but I like labels. I like defining who I am. saying I'm an asexual cougar is great because people are like, why do you do that? Because there's a lot of bad connotations can be with a cougar. I'm like, because I don't get attracted to older guys or anywhere near my birth certification. I don't want to attract those because I feel very uncomfortable. It's not the type of guy I'm attracted to. And I purposely want to make sure that people know I'm interested in younger guys in their 20s, not in, not older guys. And so I do that on purpose. It's very good for dating as well. I prefer labels because otherwise you're having to have conversations with people that you could have just seen at a glance weren't going to be right match for you anyway. If a guy's interested in a guy, for example, and I'm female, I know if he puts homoromantic, meaning he's romantically attracted to the same gender, then I know that I don't go there. And it doesn't waste time. Otherwise, it just wastes so much time. So I like labels. I love them. But, I find it empowering, not disempowering.
Well, see, to not have a label doesn't disempower you at all. It may. I see myself as very rare, raw, and real. I tell it like it is. I have no presumptions of anything, but I have also no expectations of outcomes either. So the fact is that it's like, no, I understand people do choose to label themselves. Just for me, I see everybody as human beings or beings on this planet. And so this way, it's not about race. It's not about religion. It's not about gender. It's not about all these things that people want to identify themselves as to who they are. For me, they're a being. They're a blessed being.
I agree. Everyone is a human being, regardless of any of that. But I think people should just accept people for who they are. So if someone identifies themselves as transgender, that's great. If someone identifies themselves as gay, that's great. If someone identifies themselves as asexual, that's great. If someone identifies as a person of color, that's great. Whatever people identify as, I think everyone should just accept everyone for who they are and however they identify.
Well, see, I absolutely do. I absolutely do. But I don't need to know their label to accept them for who they are. That's my difference. So I accept them as just who they are and who they show up as themselves for me. And that's just how it is. But then I'm in my 60s and I'm what they call old school. And it's not that I had rules or regulations or anything like that in my life. It's just that I'm all about humanity. And I think when you see people that are about humanity, I could care. It's not that I could care less. I want everybody to understand who they are, how they are, and they accept themselves as who they are. And that is 99.9% of the understanding. Because if you accept yourself, and I love the way you define yourself, because if you accept yourself 150% all in, you know the difference between somebody that's just like, yeah, I think I'm just going to play this game, play this hustle, play this role for right now. And you know the difference. It's that innate understanding.
I'm very conscious.
Does that make sense? As far as like, that's like I say, I can honor somebody and who they are and what they call themselves. If they're 100% in and they're real raw and rare about it, than somebody that's, just playing the system.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with playing the system. I'm not like, there's a lot of people, for example, in the entrepreneur world that are motivated by money. I'm actually not motivated by money. I'm motivated by a sense of responsibility and achievement. And I feel a great sense of responsibility towards asexuals. With the books I write, on my channel, I feel it's my duty to take care of them. Even though it's not exactly my full responsibility. Everyone's responsible for themselves. I kind of have a instinct that I care about them, and they do feel supported on my channel. That's one of the major feedbacks I got back, that they feel very supported, which is good. I like to support them. I like to be here. I give one of the people I came across, they said, oh, you give a voice to the voiceless, and I'm like, yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, because I do, I speak out on a lot of topics and things that they would be scared to address themselves. And I'm very raw and real on my channel. I usually stream every night. So I've got it's a bit like a reality TV show where you see my life since 2015 and everything I've been through, all the dating, all the relationships, everything. I haven't really had a long-term relationship since 2011, which is the last time I had sex. But yeah, so it's a bit like watching a reality show. So.
I ask this of all the people I interview to help people who don't understand asexuals. Give them 3 tips on would be the best way to understand them, address them, accept them.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I'm trying to actually figure out 3 tips so that it's so that they can understand. I mean, this is for anybody.
One is the first major one is do not think that all asexuals are the same, because they're not. I mentioned the asexual spectrum, and it's huge. So there's people who are asexuals who are very repulsed by sex, don't want anything to do with it, hate talking about it. And there's asexuals that are sex positive and will have sex in relationships. So don't think that just because someone labels themselves asexual that it means one particular thing. You have to ask them, like, what does asexuality mean for you and to you? Like, how does that work in practical terms? Like, if you're wanting to have a relationship with an asexual, like, how would that work? Like, how much touching do you like? Like how much, communication. Communication is essential as well. I would say that's my second tip, is communication. If you are ever having a relationship with an asexual person, usually asexuals love for a deep emotional connection, and one of the ways of getting that is through high levels of communication, especially as they don't usually focus on the physical stuff. So you should be prepared to be very kind of vulnerable and open with them and very emotionally connected to them to maintain and sustain kind of a loving, caring, committed relationship. And also, if you are a different sexuality to them, it's very important that you talk constantly about what feels comfortable for you and the other person and what doesn't. And then third, do not think that asexuality is the same as celibacy or abstinence, because it really isn't. And don't say, oh, you just haven't tried me yet, you just haven't had sex with me yet, you just haven't had the right person yet, and all these other things that we get told. Just believe the person's asexual, and that it means it's based on lack of sexual attraction. Don't think as well that someone's asexual just because they've had sexual trauma, sexual abuse, because that's one of the major things most people think. Some asexuals have had sexual abuse, some haven't. But just because a person's had sexual abuse doesn't make them asexual. And asexuality, it's not a choice. It's something that you actually are. Some people are like, oh, I'd like to try asexuality. I'm like, you can't try it on like a coat.
A lot of people think in their minds, Sandra, they believe it is just that. It is like, okay, this is their whim for today.
Oh,
and
yeah.
because here's like in everything, there's those few that misrepresents what it truly is. So that's why I was so excited knowing you were coming on, so that we could have this conversation, so that to show that, like, when you said it was just like, when you made the comment about, oh, well, you haven't had sex with me, so, I could be that turning factor. And in my mind, I had this red flag flying in front of my face. And just from a person, individual point of view, whether you're asexual or not, it was a manipulation tool that just waved in front of my face. And I think educating people about understanding would help identify and make it more acceptable, because it's then not misrepresented.
Yeah.
And I think that's the battle you're kind of fighting, because, it's just like, as far as I know, back in the day, I knew of interracial relationships back in the 70s. It wasn't uncommon, but it was uncommon in certain areas. So that's why it was a problem in certain areas. That's why, with everything that's been going on, most people don't realize is that no matter what we do, as long as we accept and own up our own behaviors, we can be real, raw, and rare with ourselves and then with everybody else. And so that was just the flag that came to me, and it was my understanding, and that's why I giggled, because it's like that's a poor statement to make to anybody, whether you're heterosexual or asexual. That's a manipulation statement.
There are a lot of guys that do that, and asexuals get it a lot though. It's known in my Asexual Perspectives book. Someone said it is about magic dick theory. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word on your podcast, but I just have.
I may now have to censor you to no children.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, it's basically like if you have mind, then everything will change. You won't be asexual anymore. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that.
Well,
It's
they used to say that about gay women. Hey, if you just because you had a bad experience, if you were with me, you wouldn't be that way anymore. It's that
it's disgusting.
masculine understanding or that controlling female understanding, because they're both. There's both in both worlds. So I understand that, but that's why I said it doesn't matter whether you're heterosexual or asexual. That's a manipulation statement.
Yeah.
Understanding those, I appreciate your tips. I loved them. I thought they were great tips. But I want you to sit back and relax for a second. I want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and I want you to connect with your 5-year-old inner child. I ask this of everybody. Ask this of everybody.
So 5 years old.
Yeah, 5-year-old self.
I can barely remember. There's only one.
Okay, well, that's fine. Just go back as far as you can. And what would that child say about you now?
That's really difficult. I can only remember one thing about then. That I'm strong. That I'm powerful. That I will succeed in whatever I do later on in my life. That I will be helping people in the future. I would have told her to go and write books because that would be my life purpose. I was like, get on and write the book sooner. But then I had to have all the experiences I had. See, people talk about going back, but at the end of the day, if you change something, then you change who you are now, if you know what I mean. So if I hadn't had all the difficult experiences that I've experienced, then I wouldn't be able to help asexuals the way I can right now, because I had my first difficult sexual experience at 6 years old. So the only memory I've got when I was 5 is actually when I first started school, and I had a boy who was my best friend, and he left, and I was really sad because I was really lonely. That's the only thing I can remember from when I was 5. That's the only thing I remember.
Open your eyes, because the other thing is they say that what I felt intuitively was that they were very, very proud of you because you figured it out. And that's where a lot of confusion was in your life, going through all of these experiences and these understandings. Is like, is that me? Isn't that me? Getting the clarity was key. And they're proud of you for getting that clarity. And they're always proud when people are of service to other people. And I think you took it more analytical instead of the emotional. So just to bring up that part, and they want you to get more in touch, stay in touch with that inner child, whatever age it is, because that's where because that's where your intuition lies. That's where your understanding is.
Yeah, I live like I'm 15. So I've got the mindset of a 21-year-old, and I live like I'm 15 years old. And I learned to do that through a Tony Robbins event in 2012, actually. That when I went to see him, that's what I realized. I have to live like my teenager self, because that's who I'm actually born to be. Like, I live like a teenager all the time, and it makes me so happy. Like, that's me naturally. So yeah, I really enjoy that, and I enjoy doing everything, like being up till 4 in the morning, going to theme parks, zoos, aquariums. Well, I've not broken my ankle like I have right now. But yeah,
I saw that. It was like, is she gonna make it? Is she gonna be able to be on here on the podcast because of it? So I'm so glad you were here today. I'm honored and I'm thankful and I'm extremely grateful that you are so open about the topic of asexual. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, thank you.
Hold on just 1 second, okay? It takes a special kind of individual to dream their dreams, their thoughts, and turning them into the reality. Sandra Bellamy, you've stepped past your fears. You stayed the course, and you had the courage to do the follow through to the end. Sandra Bellamy, you've championed yourself. Now we know who you've become. Thank you for sharing your ideas, your thoughts, and dreams with us here today.